Perfect Business of Apps. And I'm talking today with Vivian Dang, who is Senior Director, Accounts and Client Services at GummyCube. Vivian, very good day to you. How are you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine, thank you. So we're going to talk today about improving App Store conversions. So I just wonder if you could sort of set the scene for us, just talk through the issues that people need to think about here.
Yeah, absolutely. When I work with partners all the time, one of the first things that we end up discovering is that they are completely just ignoring their App Store pages. They're not A/B testing as frequently as they should be. They're not using all of the available real estate or all of the features that Apple and Google provide them. And they're simply just looking at their dashboards on the App Store Connect or on the Google Play Developer Console to just understand where their single conversion rate is, which is oftentimes kind of the worst way to take a look at how your App Store is performing, or your App Store presence is performing, rather. But the thought is always, how can I get more users? How can I get more downloads? But there's never really any strategic nuance when it comes down to it, when it comes down to how do I get more usage out of things? How do I get more users that actually convert down funnel? And that really does come from actually being able to understand how users are behaving and where they're coming from when it comes down to all of their different traffic levels.
Good stuff. So where do you start with all this? Then?
So rather than looking at the aggregate, looking at just a single number, it really just comes down to understanding what your overall sources of traffic happen to be. So users are likely coming from a multitude of different channels, like different user acquisition types of channels like Facebook or even Apple ads, things like that. They're coming from your website, they're coming from email campaigns, they're coming from different newsletters, and they're coming from the App Store themselves. The App Store is one of the biggest drivers of downloads that people tend to kind of forget about when they start launching their app and pushing a lot of advertising as well. And with all of those different channels, users behave very, very differently. Depending on what they see at the very top of the funnel, that funnel begins in a multitude of different types of ways. So if I'm a user coming in from a playable ad and I land on the App Store and I see that those mechanics are missing, and something like the screenshots as an example, I'm likely going to bounce. If I'm looking for an app or I'm looking for some sort of feature and I discover an app and I'm seeing that their title or their screenshots aren't necessarily relevant to what I'm searching for, that's when I'm also likely going to pass to download a competitor for something very similar, right? So when we're talking about the App Store and we're talking about all of the different channels that feed into it, if you're not tailoring your App Store experience to each of the different traffic funnels that exist, then you're literally just spending money to drive users to the page and then lose them.
So how do you fix it?
So luckily for us, there's a multitude of different features that Apple and Google provide. Most notably, custom pages. On iOS, it's called custom product pages. On Google Play, it's called custom store listings. You can do this for literally any source that exists, including organic, actually. This actually came out relatively recently too. But you're able to customize your metadata. So all of the written text that exists on the page, you're able to customize your creative, so your videos, your icons even, your screenshots, all of that can be customized so that it can better match the user's original origin, essentially. So once you're able to do that, once you're able to execute and actually set up the different kind of funnels for the user experience, you'll be able to actually monitor all of the different conversion rates for each individual page, which can ultimately be updated at any time. Once you see how things are converting for each custom page, you'll be able to iterate on that as your campaigns evolve as well.
And I guess as well that if you know that a user's coming to say a sports app through an interest in baseball as opposed to an interest in ice hockey, you can set up those CPPs so that they're going to see a relevant screenshot and relevant information that's going to make them more likely to convert.
Exactly. And if you think about the World Series now, if I'm a Dodger fan, which I definitely am not, if go to some sort of sports app and they have a custom page dedicated to the Dodgers fan sector or any other team, that's going to likely bring up your conversion rate because you are really, really tailoring that experience all the way down the funnel.
Good stuff. So we talked about a traffic source issue. What next?
Well, another thing that users, well, not users, partners are kind of playing around with right now just really comes down to being able to engage users with new content. And if there's a new feature, if there's a new in-app challenge, or whatever it is you happen to be promoting at the time, leveraging in-app events on iOS, or promotional content on Google Play is going to help you surface a lot of that new content to not just new users, but existing users as well. So you're thinking about users who might have downloaded the app at some point in time and haven't really interacted with it in, let's say, a couple of months, or you're even thinking about users who might have downloaded the app in the past and then have ultimately deleted that. And these events can be customized to those different types of user segments as well. And the benefit to these things is that events are relatively straightforward to set up. The only really kind of hitch that users or developers run into happen to be, gathering a deep link and things like that too. But events are enable you to really kind of publicize not just your app as a whole, but all the different kind of specific segments that have value add from a user perspective too. And these events, when you think about it, a lot of folks try to run it for something like a couple of days or so. What we recommend over here is typically running events for 7 to 14 days, just because you need time for the algorithms to really index the app, index the content of your in-app event, and then ultimately understand how your event is engaging these users too.
Good stuff. What else do people need to think about?
This might seem like a very basic misunderstanding, but it's really just A/B testing. Um, A/B testing as a whole is something that or developers don't really take super seriously from what I've been seeing. It's never really consistent on the partner end. A/B testing needs to be something where it's extremely structured, where you have hypotheses going into the tests themselves so that you can get clearer answers at the very end of it. So when we're thinking about how frequently we should be A/B testing, we should be A/B testing every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on your traffic level, of course. But that's going to allow you to get a lot of data, no matter if it's good or if it's bad. And one other thing too that a lot of developers really kind of forget about is that you're not necessarily going to hit a home run or get a winner in your A/B test with every single A/B test that you run. The expectation should never be that. The expectation is that you should be able to get some sort of learning through your series of A/B testing, but you're not necessarily going to get a home run for every at bat that you get. So being able to A/B test relatively frequently, getting that kind of data, and then ultimately A/B testing across multiple assets is going to be another key thing too. Especially with Google Play Experiments, you're able to A/B test your essentially everything on your listing except for your title. iOS limits you a little bit more, so it's more so your icon, your screenshots, and your video. But all of these things should be tested. If they're user facing, it needs to be run through an A/B test as often as you can.
And why do you think it is that it's not taken seriously often? Is it just because of a lack of resource, or just because it's a like a bit of a tedious thing to do, constantly checking copy A versus copy B, screenshot A versus screenshot B? What do you think stops people from taking it so seriously?
It's a great question, and it really can be a multitude of things. Just from my working experience, it seems to be a little bit more of a resource thing as well, because as easy as the setup may be, it is very, very tedious to pay attention on a daily basis to understand how the swings are kind of moving back and forth. Trends on A/B tests change extremely frequently, so if you're not dedicated to understanding how the A/B test is kind of going over time, then you do kind of lose sight of it on occasions. But it would be a mixture of resourcing and then ultimately how tedious it can be.
Good stuff. And I guess the only way you're going to know whether all this stuff is actually working is to measure it. So what advice would you have there?
Kind of going back to the very beginning, making sure that you don't look at things on an aggregate view. When you're looking at your conversion rate, you do need to make sure that you're breaking it up from a per channel basis. Because if you're looking at it, everything just on average, an aggregate, then you're not necessarily going to understand what it is that's bringing your conversion rate down or up in that case. Once you do break it out in or on a per channel basis, then you really get an understanding of, did this custom page increase my Apple search ads conversion, or did this custom page improve my organic conversion? And another key thing too would be the data that you actually end up looking at on the respective platforms. On Apple, a lot of folks tend to look at your product page view to install, but on we should actually be looking at things from an install to impression basis, because you're looking at the top of the funnel in that case. And for all your referral channels, like any kind of ads that you might be running, those are counted at the product page view level anyway. So that's already going to be taken into account. On Google, we can only really measure between store listing acquisition to store listing visit. But again, at the same time, you do really want to make sure that you're paying attention at things on a per channel basis for all three channels that Google gives you to.
Good stuff. And just as a takeaway, Vivian, there's a lot to digest there and lots of really useful advice. But where are the quick wins? If somebody's going to sort of, click away from this interview today and say, right, I'm going to make a start, but I can't get all this stuff at once. Where do they start with a quick win?
Your starting point would be looking at your own data and then setting up your custom pages. A lot of that goes unnoticed when users are when developers are setting up their own marketing plans. They think, I'm going to go out, I'm going to launch, I'm going to go ahead and just start all of these channels and then hope that the app store performs. But in reality, you should be taking stock of every single individual channel and source that you have so that you can best prepare yourself for that launch and ultimately for your long-term success.
Brilliant. Vivian, thank you very much indeed for that. It's been great talking to you.
Of course, you too.
So that's all for this chat on improving App Store conversions with Vivian Dang from GummyCube. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.